We are about to make this spider animation, doing the quick modeling first, then rigging and animating it using very simple techniques. At the end we'll set everything about the scene and render it. Before we begin, I want to say that I was able to do this animation by watching few Polyfior tutorials, and I'm using techniques I learned on his channel, especially the mechanical walking creature video, so if you want to find out more or learn it from the source, definitely check his stuff. And with all that said, we can jump to the spider. Start modeling with the main body part, using cylinder with 6 edges. Rotate at 90 on X and 30 degrees on Y axis with 5 levels of subdivision. Switch to edit mode and do some tweaks of the mesh. I'm using the X-ray mode to select the mesh behind and tilt key to switch quickly between the views. Move it 2 meters up by holding Ctrl to snap to the grid. Do end the legs with cylinder, scale it down to 0.3 in edit mode. 3 levels of subdivisions here, not more because we will have a lot of this and this will make the animation heavy. I'm inserting the face here and trying to do something like a nest for the joint. Adjusting the angle to get rid of these sharp edges. Duplicate it a few more times and put it right there below the body, so the legs will look something like this with 4 main sections, 1 small and 3 big. I will keep duplicating these cylinders and adjusting it in edit mode to get the other parts. Here I'll model something like a small spike or whatever is called, and 3 more here. Switch the pivot point to individual origins to work on this at the same time. Grab some mesh and separate it with P key for the next small joint. Shift E to edge crease these edges and make them sharp. Duplicate this whole thing and tweak it. If the geometry is mess, we can relax it with the loop tool menu, and this is add-on that you can enable from preferences if you don't have it. Take some time to refine it, and doing in the last part. Making sure it's touching the floor, and the leg is done. We'll just duplicate it for the others. The small arms on the front are pretty much the same, so you can store some of the leg's geometry and use it here. They actually called pedipalps, I checked this on Google. Not exactly the same, but it's again a few long parts connected with joints. Doing now the 2 big fangs in front of the mouth. Make this with enough subdivisions and mirror them. And if it goes wrong, that's because I forget to apply the rotation. These things will animate using rotation, so let's move the origin point on the place of the rotation. Something like that looks fine. I'll move the 3D cursor here for the eyes, and this will add the new object there. They're using the 3D cursor as a starting point. Bring it back to the world origin with Shift S. So here I want this to snap to the body, and I'm enabling the snapping tool. Set to center and faces. But the problem now is that everything is snapping when moving the object. So what I like to do is to turn it off and hold Ctrl only when I need the snapping, which enables this tool. Cylinder again for the back section of the body. I want this to start small and grows really big. It's just a few extrudes of the mesh. and tweak everything in edit mode. I'll copy in this part to do the big spike at the end, or the spinnerets. I'll do a few more spikes. I might use them later or not. I'll do some cleanup, moving everything in their groups, so it's easier to select and hide the different parts if I need. And with all these things done, the modeling is complete, and we can move to setting the rigs that we'll need for the animation. We can do the legs first, creating simple rig. So I will start by adding the armature and move it right there where the leg begins. Enable the in front option from here so we can see it, and let's change it to sticks so it's easier to work with. In edit mode, these points can be moved on their positions and extrude them with E for the next bone, placing them where I want the rotation to happen inside the joints, making sure the last one is touching the ground. So from here, one more extrude on the x-axis, and this will be the controller, but it's still connected to the other bones and we want it separated, so we can do it with Alt P, and now we have it. We can switch to the pose mode with Ctrl Tab to check this. We can set the inverse kinematics to this bone with Shift I, and now we have this nice rig that we can use. This is still in pose mode, but let's switch back to object mode and start connecting the legs part to the bones that we created. We just have to select the bone we need in edit mode, then the part we want in object mode, and pair them to the bone with Ctrl P. So now they are attached. Do the same with other parts, using Tab to switch between the modes and selecting the bones we need, then pairing the parts. So at the end we have the leg that we can move like that in pose mode using the armature. Another thing is to limit the first bone, this one, so it doesn't go up and down but only sideways. This can be done here by locking the different axes. The switch axes have to be locked like that, and we can reset the position with Alt G. Let's recon the arm. We can use the same armature, just duplicate it with Shift D and rotate it 90 degrees. Scale it down. I'm not sure if we have to apply the scale. But next is to release the inverse kinematics on all axes. Don't have to be locked here. So put it on place and start adjusting the points in edit mode to match with the arm joints. We can delete points with Ctrl X. I will set the inverse kinematics differently on the arm, but it's unable to move it now. And that's because it already has IK set from before. So let's get rid of this constraint from here. And now we are able to set it again. Can be Shift I or do it from the pose menu and pick to new empty object this time. And that's what we'll use to animate the movements later. Pair the parts to all the bones like we did before. Jumping between object and edit modes with Tab. So we get this really nice rig. We can play with it in object mode using the empty. I'll rotate the whole arm a little bit to get the position I want and check how this will look. Select everything for the other side. I want to flip it using the 3D cursor, so Shift D to duplicate it, then Ctrl MX to flip it on the X axis, and now we have them both. So we get everything we need and we can start animating things. Let's make the legs first, doing the walking cycles. Should be something like this. That's easily done with a curve, circle. or half of it. Rotate it on Y and delete the bottom vertex in edit mode. Scale this down by pressing S and 0 and move this one somewhere here. Can be a little bit bigger, and that's what we need for now. So let's grab the rig controller in pose mode and add follow path constraint, then pick the curve. If it go messy, that's because I forget to apply the rotation again, so I'll do it now. Jump to a side view to see how this thing works. We have to animate the offset to make the walking cycle. So let me bring the timeline and set the animation to 300 frames, 30 frames per second, and go back to the constraint. I don't know where this keyframe came from, but I'll just delete it. Move one frame to start from 0 and add keyframe to the offset. Then move 15 frames, set the offset to 100 and add the other keyframe. So check the animation now and it's working fine. Just have to make it non-stop. So select all keyframes and set them to linear extrapolation with Shift E. So now they are running constantly. The steps can be bigger. We can still scale it in edit mode. If we come to the front view, we can see that the leg is going only up and down, but we want to do some side motion. So let's rotate the path 45 degrees. And now has this little bit opening when it's coming back or stretching on the side, which is what we needed. I'm happy with the way it looks, and I'll turn off the follow path constraint for now to duplicate it for the other legs. I'll select all parts with the armature and rotate it using again the 3D cursor, holding control and do something like 20 degrees. Duplicate the whole thing and do a little bit more this time, 30 degrees. Do the same and for the back legs. Just duplicate them and rotate them by holding control. I'll grab the control bones and adjust the position of the legs in pose mode to get something closer to a spider pose. Turn back on the follow path constraint to see what we have. Need some random movement there, and the easiest way is to offset each leg with a few frames. We can do it in the timeline or the graph editor. I will start with this one, holding control to adjust the graph. Select all keyframes with A and move 4 frames. Here you can see how much is the offset. Do the same thing here, but with 8 frames. And the last one with 12. Do some final adjustments of the bones position in pose mode before we duplicate all the legs on the other side. I want to make sure the back legs don't intersect with the body. And these little parts to popping out a little bit, showing from the top. Extend the front leg as much as we can. Let's give it a material to see how it looks. Make it black, but we'll stay with something like a dark gray, because pure black is too heavy when it's metallic. I think that looks great, and the animation is coming together. Make this one red color, the spinneret. Do NDI's different color to pop out from the black. I'll make them white and red metallic. And I think this part looks really cool when it's red color too. Check again if it's all good. For the other side, we want to select all the leg parts with the armature and the follow path curve. Shift D to duplicate them, then Ctrl M and X to flip on the other side. If it's going crazy, that's because we have to apply the transforms on the curve, and it looks fine now. We can see that they are connected with the right curve. Do again some offset of the legs, so they are half away from the other legs. It starts looking really nice with all the legs on their places. Here is the viewport shading. We want to connect them with this part. So let's display the overlays and grab the armature. We need this bone and add child of constraint to it. Select with eyedropper. Or let's actually copy the name with F2 and paste it there. Check it now and the bone is connected. The whole armature works the way we want. So let's do this with the other legs as well. Double check everything. It's all good, so let's pair all the parts to this object that we use it to control the armature. The only thing left are the small arms in front. It's all the same with a child of constraint. The empties we'll do later. We can get some luck already. Here is showing on the FPS bar. We have a lot of subdivisions and that can slow it down. And you can of course go ahead and lower some of them for the viewport only. But the easiest way to do it is to go to the render tab and enable simplify, where we can set the maximum level of subdivision to 2 for the viewport. And now it's running smooth. What we want to do next is animating this part or give it some motion, and we can start with the location. Adding the keyframe and selecting the Z axis from here. From the modifiers tab we can select the noise, and we can see already something happens. Make it slower by increasing the scale, and do the up and down movement stronger from the strength. But let's zoom in so we can see what we're doing. Hold Ctrl and the scroll button and move the mouse here to set it. We can copy the modifier settings and paste them like that to the other axis. So just play with these settings and try to get some movement that you think works fine. But don't make it too strong as it looks strange. Another thing that looks great is when it's rotating slightly on the y-axis. So let's do that. Tweak the settings to get something more natural looking. We gotta make sure the spikes below don't hit the ground or go under. We can always phase it to get different results, and it's all procedural, so it can be changed at any time later. Let's do the hands now, using the empties to set the motion. Nothing different here, adding the keyframes and set the noise modifier settings right for each axis. Just copy and paste to save some time, but phase the graph, because if it stays the same on different axes, looks off. Checking what we have, and I think the position can be lower and maybe not so spread out. To fix this, we can select the axes and move them up and down in the graph editor, like the Z if you want it to be lower, like that. Do in the other hand quickly with copy paste and phase it. It's all about how you want it, so check it from different views and move the keyframes in the editor. Watch not to put them closer to the other parts, as they will start bumping each other and intersecting. It all looks good, and as a final part to animate, on the y-axis, the rotation, put the scale low to get some faster movement. It's all perfect, and I think we can leave the animation for now and do some texturing or drawing procedurally. We are using free layer based Addon for this, but I want to make copy of the body non-destructive because we have to convert it to mesh first. Do the lazy unwrapping with Smart UV Project. And if you install the Ucupaint add-on, you can generate the node setup like that. I like to work with masks because it have a lot of options to adjust it procedurally. So with this set, we can jump to the texture painting mode and start drawing. For the mask, we have two colors, black and white. With the white, we are adding, and with the black, we're removing. We can flip this with X or just hold Ctrl to switch between these two, just like that. So when you have something painted, you can change the color from here. Not only that, we have all these channels where we can control the metallic, roughness, and even the normal. If you have some problems with the channels and the values not working, you can try to override them from here. With all this clear, I'll go to the top view and start drawing the thing I want. But the problem is that I didn't separate the material, so I'll do it now. For all the other parts, I'll switch to the shader editor and delete the Ucupaint node to make sure they are not connected anymore. I'll do a quick outline of the thing I want to be, and it's much easier when you do it with a tablet. You can still do it with mouse too, but the pen makes the difference. I'll do the rough shape and then refine it. Sometimes it's easier when working in the viewport shading, and we can do that. Just have to be in the texture painting mode, because in object mode you won't see the thing that you draw. So let's refine the lines, holding Ctrl to remove from the mask. This option right here is very handy, especially if you're working with mouse. You gotta get used with it, but we'll always leave refined lines. Now it's all process of adding and removing to refine it until you're happy with it. You can check here if your drawing is saved. If not, you can just save the Blender file. I'll leave this one here, and I want to add one more shape that can be with a different color. We can add multiple masks, but I think there is a limit to how much. You have to double check if you want to add many. So here is the same thing, except the fact that we want it to be on both sides. We can enable the mirror effect from here, and I believe that it's using the 3D cursor to project it on the other side. It's not based on the texture position or something like that, just the 3D cursor. The cool thing is that with this add-on we can always disable any of the layers. We can switch with different colors and do so much more with it. If you never used it before, you should definitely try it. But with all these things done, let's set the scene now and do some renders to see what we have. I'll add a plane and increase it a lot. Then apply the scale to get everything right in the shader editor. Using cycles and touch some of the settings. Need a light on top with more power and make it bigger. I will start with the roughness. Noise texture, Ctrl T for the mappings to the object coordinates. Go ramp there and Ctrl click to isolate it and see what we're doing. Details up with some roughness and a little bit of distortion. Still can't say if we have it. I think it looks better in the viewport shading, so let's stay here for now. To make the difference when the spider is running or walking, we need some pattern, and I'll use the Voronoi texture with the same mappings which will animate. We are making something like a small dark spots, and we will animate them because the spider will stay stationary, and this will give the illusion that it's moving. So just like that, find the axis that we need. I'll put here the timeline. Add a keyframe at the beginning, then go to the end, add some value and add the other keyframe. Now we gotta make sure the pattern is running with the same speed as the legs. And adjust the final keyframe if we have to. I think that looks correct, so I'll leave it here. Let's do a check-in in cycles. And we have to complete the scene setup here. Start with the HDRI map in the world settings. I'm using this map, Roof Garden from Polyheaven. Lower the strength to 0.3. We can change the background with solid color, and that's very easy to do. Just mix one more background color like that in the world tab and use the light path node, camera ray for the factor. So from this node now we can set the color. I'm trying to add some tone, offset the white to match better the floor. Let's do end the lightning. Bunch of lights on one of the sides and we'll animate them. But let's exclude the reflection from the floor first. With Ctrl L we can set the light links like that. So now we want to duplicate them as instances with Alt D instead of Shift D, so we can control the parameters of all of them at once. Need an empty to do the pairing. Use the grid when making the copies. Bunch of these and move them somewhere in the middle. Do the empty with the starting and end keyframes. And we have the animation. One more thing I want to set, and that's with the background. Before I get a really nice reflection effect here. When changing this to mirror bow, we have these really nice stretching lines, so we will leave it like that. And I think it looks much better with these reflections behind. I also want to make something like infinity effect, where the floor merges with the background without that harsh line, so we can use gradient texture for this. Using the object coordinates and set the texture to quadric sphere. Adjust the scale only. What we need is a transparent BSDF for the second shader swat. Or we have to actually flip this, and we have it. Color ramp there to make it more or less pronounced with the bars. But I think that looks perfect and it runs smoothly in cycles. It's not so good in the viewport shading, but you can always turn it off. Adding in the camera to make the shots. Increase the passport 2 all the way to see only what's in. I want to amplify that infinity effect and make it more mysterious. So let's add a little bit of volume. principal volume and keep the density very low. What I want to do here is to put just a part of the spider in and don't cover all of it. I want these legs in front to be clear and this effect to be only on the background. Make it white, of course, and check what we have. Do an adaptive field. Set the distance with the eyedropper and lower the focus. Let's check it by enabling the limit. You can see that the eyedropper is picking the sphere and we want it to be on the eyes. It will be much easier to work with if we make this sphere to bounce. But that's basically all the things we need for the renders. So set the file format and the output file. I'm doing it lazy with the hot clips, not sequences, but that's all good. I spent more time setting the animations, but that's everything I did for the final renders. That was all I wanted to share on this one, so hope you like the things we did, and thanks for watching.